A radar operator sits in a dim room in 1943, staring at a screen, waiting for a single blip that might mean an incoming U-boat. The room is quiet except for a faint electrical hum. His eyes ache slightly from the glow. Nothing happens for 20 minutes straight. Then, right when it matters most, a blip appears, faint and quick, barely a flicker against the static. He misses it. Not because he was careless. Not because he didn't care whether people lived or died that night. He missed it because something in his brain had already quietly clocked out, 20 minutes before that blip ever showed up. A psychologist named Norman Mackworth got called in to figure out why this kept happening, over and over, with different operators, in different units. So he built something almost embarrassingly simple. A clock face with a single hand that jumped forward in tiny, regular steps, except every so often, it would jump a little further than usual. Watch the clock. Press a button the moment you spot the bigger jump. That's the whole test. Here's what he found, and it unsettled a lot of people who assumed attention was just a matter of trying hard enough. Accuracy held up fine for the first half hour. Then it started collapsing. Not gradually, smoothly, the way you'd expect tiredness to creep in. It dropped off a cliff, fast, right around a 30-minute mark, in nearly everyone tested, regardless of how motivated or well-rested they were. They called it the vigilance decrement. And it turns out this isn't a flaw in a few unlucky people. It's baked into how attention actually works. So what's really happening inside a brain that's failing at the exact task it's been told is the only thing that matters? Your attention isn't a spotlight you can just point wherever you want and leave running forever. It behaves more like a muscle that fatigues, except the fatigue isn't really physical. It's about prediction. Your brain is constantly asking a background question, completely outside your awareness. Is anything about to change here? When the honest answer keeps coming back no, no, still no, your brain starts quietly reallocating resources elsewhere, whether you gave it permission to or not. That reallocation has a name too. Mind wandering. And for decades, people assumed it was mostly harmless, just your brain taking a breather during boring stretches. Then researchers Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert ran something clever. They built a phone app that pinged thousands of people at random points during their actual day, in the middle of real errands, real meetings, real commutes, and asked 2 questions instantly. What are you doing right now? And is your mind on that task, or somewhere else? The results were almost uncomfortable to read. People's minds wandered nearly half of their waking hours, across almost every single activity they measured. And here's the twist that made this genuinely important instead of just a curious statistic. People were measurably less happy in the moments their mind had wandered, even when it wandered towards something pleasant, compared to the moments they were fully absorbed in whatever was right in front of them, even something boring. Read that again. A wandering mind was an unhappy mind, no matter where it wandered to. Being fully present at a dull task beat being half present at an exciting daydream. Which suggests something your instincts probably fight against. The thing you think would make you happier, escaping into your own head, is often exactly the thing quietly making you feel worse. So why would evolution build a brain this restless, one that keeps drifting away from the very thing you're trying to focus on? Because for most of human history, unbroken focus on one unchanging thing was often a bad survival strategy. A mind locked rigidly onto one task, blind to everything else, could miss a predator approaching from the side, miss a change in weather, miss a rustle in the grass that mattered more than whatever task was directly in front of it. Wandering attention wasn't a bug. It was a built-in scanning system, constantly sampling the wider environment for anything more urgent than the current task, just in case. That system made excellent sense on a savanna full of unpredictable threats. It makes considerably less sense at a desk, in a meeting, in front of a textbook, where the threat scanning system now gets triggered by nothing more dangerous than a notification buzz or a stray thought about dinner. There's a chemical reason novelty wins that fight so easily. Your brain releases small bursts of dopamine in response to new information, not necessarily good information, just new. A fresh notification, an unread message, a half-remembered errand, all of it competes for the same limited chemical reward system as the task actually in front of you. An unchanging task, however important, simply cannot compete with the promise of something new, because your brain's reward system was never built to reward more of the same, even when more of the same is exactly what the moment requires. Here's where the modern world made an old problem dramatically worse. Researcher Gloria Mark has spent years tracking how long people actually stay focused on a single screen before switching to something else, using nothing but direct observation logged second by second on real computers in real offices. Decades ago, that number sat somewhere around 2.5 minutes. Now it's closer to 50 seconds, and shrinking further with each study. Not because people got lazier or weaker-willed. Because the environment now interrupts far more aggressively and far more often than any environment human attention ever evolved inside. And every single one of those switches costs something you don't see happening in the moment. Research on task switching consistently finds that returning to a task after an interruption doesn't just cost the interruption's length. It costs extra time afterward too, a kind of residue, while part of your attention keeps quietly reorienting back to what you were doing before the switch ever happened. Do that enough times in a day, and you can spend hours technically working while actually completing a small fraction of what full, sustained focus could have produced in far less time. Now here's the part that offers something more useful than just feeling bad about your own attention span. If sustained focus behaves like a trainable system rather than a fixed trait you're stuck with, it should respond to practice, the same way a muscle responds to consistent load. Researcher Amishir Jha tested exactly that idea with a genuinely high-stakes population, soldiers preparing to deploy into combat, under real, brutal time pressure and real stress. Groups that practiced short, structured attention exercises, essentially controlled focus training, showed measurably better sustained attention scores heading into deployment, compared to groups that didn't train at all. Attention wasn't fixed. It moved, in a matter of weeks, with deliberate practice. Which reframes the whole problem. You are not simply choosing to be distracted, some smaller, weaker-willed version of a person who could focus better if they just decided to. You're operating a genuinely ancient scanning system, dropped into an environment engineered, whether by accident or design, to trigger it every few seconds, and you're doing it with a skill that, like most skills, actually responds to deliberate practice rather than sheer willpower alone. That radar operator in 1943 wasn't failing because he was weak. He was running headfirst into a limit built into every single human brain in that room, one nobody fully understood yet, one that took a clock made of nothing but a single moving hand to finally expose. A radar operator sits in a dim room, staring at a screen, waiting for a blip that might mean everything. And now, decades later, you finally understand exactly why watching, for him, and for you, was never actually as simple as just deciding to.